can we start the recording again? Perfect, thank you. So welcome back, folks. This is just the last part of our day together. And I wanted to just have a little bit of time for us to consider issues to do with conduct and boundaries as a mindfulness facilitator. So it's important just to get a bit more of a sense of, well, what is this facilitator role, particularly perhaps for those of us who aren't fully trained breathworks teachers and maybe don't intend to go on to do that. But it's important for all of us to have a sense of, well, what's the difference? And to look at the ways in which the breathworks ethical standards apply in this context, and draw out any questions that we might have. So, at a very simple level, we've kind of touched really quite a bit on what the difference is, but just to say, facilitators are trained to deliver these kind of much lighter touch, shorter mindfulness sessions only, and not trained to deliver the full 8-week courses. The intention is for these sessions to be very much kind of at an introductory level, and appropriate for sharing mindfulness in workplaces, community settings, your home, whatever, but in safe and simple ways. And as we've said, actually, that doesn't stop it from going deep, but the hope is that that does keep it safe for people. And obviously, in contrast, fully fledged breathworks teachers we require them to have a longer, more established personal meditation practice. They have to do a full year of training that complies with the Bamba Good Practice Guidelines. They have to do an annual retreat, and CPD, have to undertake regular supervision when teaching. Now, we don't make a requirement that facilitators undertake regular supervision, but it's certainly a recommendation that people doing the facilitation work should look at ways of getting support. It might be peer support, buddying up in the way that's already been described. Or it might be that actually you do occasionally have a freestanding supervision session with one of our team of supervisors. So there are different ways that one can go about it. And obviously for fully fledged breathworks teachers, they're equipped to deliver the full 8-week courses, take participants into somewhat deeper territory, and obviously draw from and adapt the approach and so on much more. So, if you're someone who hasn't completed our teacher training and you want to do more than just facilitating these six little sessions, then obviously you could have a think about going ahead and completing the teacher training. And the main thing in terms of how you present yourself is that if you're not a fully fledged teacher, then be careful about vocabulary. I would say use the word facilitator about yourself. Don't say that you're a trained mindfulness teacher if you haven't completed that training with us. Those are the basics of the sort of the boundary and the difference between this and the full teach training. And obviously some of you have completed that, I'm aware. Is there anything that you want to check in about to do with this sense of what are the boundaries, what are the differences, what should I or shouldn't I do with this particular hat on, this facilitator hat? Is there anything that's not feeling clear? Good. Or are we all just a bit exhausted and run out of questions? I mean, I'm glad if the distinction does feel clear. That was the hope. Hilary, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering, after today, how would you recommend going about informing people of what we've just done? So to get people interested, to get them engaged and curious about this. It is quite different to my mind, to just saying, let's all get together for a meditation session, because it's more than that. It is showing parts of the breathworks approach, in the sense that you've got the meditation, you've got the key idea, and then you've got something to take away, a little bit of homework almost. So how would you promote and inform people about this, would you say? What's the best way?
Yeah. I mean, I would say describing it in the sorts of ways that we have today, that it's freestanding, short, introductory sessions, and that you'll be sharing some practices, also some things people can take away and do at home, also a little idea that they might find helpful and insightful. So you can kind of give them that flavor. Somebody asked earlier, didn't they? And let's part that question, but about resources. Your two main free resources that you can offer people and signpost people to, including at the point where you're promoting something, is the Breathwork SoundCloud channel. There's loads of stuff on there, including some playlists. So, if you go to the Breathwork SoundCloud channel, there's the general sort of list, which is all higgledy-piggledy, depending what's been put on most recently. But there's a playlists tab. And if you look at the playlists tab, there's one for the Little Mindfulness Workbook, which has all of the stress course meditations. And there's now also a playlist for each of the 8 weeks of the health course, including the ones that Vidyamala recorded more recently with some trauma-sensitive language and so on. So those are great resources to direct people towards. And the other thing, obviously, is the community of practice. There's in the menu section of the community practice, there's an area called resources, which has spaces where lots of recordings are stored for guided meditations and practices. And of course, there's the ongoing freebies. There's the Tuesday nights with Vidyamala, and there's the regular fortnightly sessions with various teachers. So, make the most of the sort of whole free network that you've got. Examples of marketing materials. There's a Breathworks, there's for fully fledged teachers, there are some marketing materials that we provide. There's also been a brilliant course that Emma has run at least twice now, I think, about mindful marketing. So, there's every possibility that will come up again, in which case I would say, look out for it and sign up. But I don't think, Emma, is there anything else you'd come in with there that people could use I haven't thought of?
So, yeah, I would say when you're coming to market it, I guess it's similar to how these courses, the plus of us learning it is the simplicity of it. So I guess one kind of key thing maybe to remember when you're creating any marketing materials is what, thinking through who your audience is, what their challenge is, and how you're going to provide a solution. And that could even just be one sentence that names all of those things. And that's really enough to at least capture their attention. And then, always have something you're linking them to that will provide more information. Because someone named it earlier, which is so true for marketing as well, the more detail you provide, it can turn people off. So yeah, simplicity is key.
Thank you, Emma. I should have said Emma is Breathworks marketing manager, so that's how come we were calling on her expertise there. There's also on the Breathworks website, if you look at the training pages, there's a page for the facilitator training, and in there you would find a little paragraph describing what these 6 mini mindfulness modules are, and you could point people to that or lift a sentence of it to use in whatever you're giving out to people. Helen.
Yeah, connected to that. I will be going on to do the TTA, but just at this juncture where I've got hopefully this facilitator certificate now, the Breathworks logo is on the slide, so I take it we're authorised to use that on those materials. Is that right? So I suppose I've just worked for businesses before where using a logo is like contentious, and I just want to make sure I'm doing the right thing from the get-go, if you know what I mean.
Certainly when we were putting those slides together, we kept the logo on it because it's a package that we're giving you. This is a Breathworks module, a mini module, this is the thing that goes with it. I think if you're going to play with those slides, then I would say, you know, if you're going to do your own thing and add bits in and all the rest of it, then I would say at that point, perhaps it would be appropriate to take the logo off, because that then becomes your product rather than ours. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Thank you. I just needed to hear them both. Thank you.
Hilary, did you have another question, or was your hand just left up?
Yeah, I had another question, Ginny, just quickly. In terms of, I may be able to offer this to colleagues at work, and there's a question of costs and so on. What kind of guidelines would you suggest for? I'm presuming it's going to be like a one-off cost rather than buying a course as such and sort of drop-in session. What guidelines would you give people for that?
Do you mean for you to charge somebody for your...
Yeah. I'm not sure how that actually works, because I don't charge anything for my works at the moment. But is this something that you're planning as something that is chargeable, or how does it work?
Basically, if somebody will pay you to facilitate these little sessions, then great. In terms of guidance about how much to charge, I cannot begin to say that, because it really is how long is a piece of string. You know, teachers ask us the same thing, Breathworks teachers. And the difficulty is that we've got teachers working in contexts where they're doing it for free because it's a community setting, or it's a patient group that they work with, or whatever. And then there's other people going into businesses and selling their services, you know, for a premium, and everything in between. And so, you know, I can't really say what should you charge. It's going to be a case, as ever in this beautiful capitalist world of ours, of what will the market support? You know,
that's good. I just wanted to explore that, because I needed some guidance on that. So thank you. Yeah. All right.
Sorry, I can't be more help. Okay, is there anything else immediately on anyone's mind to ask? If not, what I'm going to do then is I'm going to briefly share my screen. I've got one last thing to show you, which for those of you who, well, actually it should be familiar to all of you if you've done TTI, but let's see. Okay, so this is just the summary of the Breathworks ethical principles. So having done TTI, you should have the bit of the training manual with the code of conduct in it. Now, we didn't try to put together a full code of conduct for facilitators, but are basically bringing people back to these 5 core ethical principles upon which our teacher's code of conduct is based anyway. So these principles reflect our values. They provide a framework which guides our activities with others. And so that the values are that we work with the intention of alleviating suffering. We care for others with an intention of kindness and compassion. We value acceptance, integrity, and commitment. We aim to be clear and honest in our communication. And we avoid any activities which we feel will compromise these values. Okay, so my question to you, and I'll remove the screen share in just a moment, is in the context of facilitating a short mindfulness session or a little series of them, or whatever you might find yourself doing, in what way do you see any of these principles applying? You know, what sort of things might you bear in mind in order to abide by these basic core ethics? Yeah, so I'll stop sharing and just see what, if anything, pops into your mind. I've got a few ideas myself, but I'm sure you will as well. So what might be important, Katie?
Just that, you know, it is what it is and it's no more. So we're not going into the content, or we're not trying to, you know, we're just offering something, and we're not going to claim any amazing cures or anything like that from this work. Overselling it.
Yeah, so not overselling or overpromising. That doesn't stop us sharing a link to the research pages on the Breathworks website and saying, look, here's the evidence base for the full Breathworks approach in its 8-week courses. And this is just a smaller, lighter touch version of that. So we're not going to claim we've got the same evidence base for this intervention, but it's based on evidence-based principles. Yeah, thank you. Any other thoughts from anyone? What pops into your mind around ethics and so on in facilitating these sessions? Aidan.
Yeah, it would be to be mindful as a facilitator, and that in the truest sense of the word, to recognize, to identify, to understand, and to respond to, not react to, what shows up in the group, and be flexible in that regard.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so really, I mean, as we'd say in the breathworks teaching competencies, embodying mindfulness. Yeah, so to be mindful and respond with whatever comes up in the group, as you so beautifully put it. Yeah, thank you. Anyone else have any thoughts? Emma?
So with kind of one-off sessions, we obviously wouldn't set any pre-course questionnaires to do screening, but what would you ever send a pre-course questionnaire for facilitators? Say if you'd put it together to make a 3 or 4 week course, do you think that would warrant doing some checking and just seeing where people are coming from? Almost doing that kind of screening process.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good question, and it's something that you might want to judge on a contextual basis, really. If you're going to be working with the same group of people over a few weeks, then you might have the opportunity, as much as anything, to do a little pre-course contact with them. I don't know that it would necessarily need to be screening. In the sense, what you're referring to, I think, is that, if you're doing a full 8-week course, you want to make sure you're not taking anybody into your group who's in a sort of acute mental health crisis or whatever. I think with these little sessions, that's not such an issue. But if you're going to have a group of people that you're working with over a few sessions, it would be good to have their basic details, wouldn't it? And to have had some sort of contact where you're letting them know this is kind of what to expect. Have you got any questions? And I think in that context, if I had the opportunity, I would want to say to people, can you tell me about any learning needs that you have, or any health issues that might be relevant? Because that's just basic good practice, isn't it? And more often than not, with a single sort of freestanding session, you don't really have that opportunity to do that. But yeah, if you were running a little session, or it was with a group where actually it was quite a repeating kind of group, and you have the opportunity to ask them, then yeah, please do. I think good idea. Yeah. Liz.
Hi. A question about, being kind and compassionate with people. If you know there's a group you would think you might like to sort of possibly offer for nothing, or for free or something, some sessions, but the likelihood is there's quite a lot of trauma in that community. That's very likely to be in that community. I know this is quite trauma sensitive, but do you think it's opening up a can of worms, or is it better to offer something in the smaller sessions if you don't think people have either got the resources or likely to go and do like a full 8-week course, which you might think is preferable? I don't know. I just caught on that one a bit. When is it? If there is likely to be quite quite a lot of background stuff that is there. How safe is it to go into it in these sort of mini modules, or is it just going to open up a can of worms and you might regret it? I don't know.
The thing is, humans have trauma. Humans have trauma. Any group of humans that you invite together to do mindfulness, there's trauma in the room. And yes, of course, in some settings, some communities, there's more obvious issues. But trainees on our full teach training ask this question again and again, because it's a very sensible concern to have. It's like, I want to be safe. I don't want to lead people into further difficulty. So yeah, coming back to the basics of, we designed these to be as safe as they can be. There's lots of kind of caveats, and there's some very, very simple but important grounding practices and so on included. People with trauma live with their trauma all day long, week in, week out, just like people with physical pain do. And so really what we're doing is we're offering them some very simple tools and saying, is this helpful? You're in charge. you know. And if it isn't helpful, or if they feel in any way like, hold on, I don't want to go there, that practice doesn't, then fine. We're being really clear. And I think that's one of the reasons for talking about these principles is we need to be really clear that this is invitational, that people are in charge of their own choices around this, and that we respect that there may be trauma, and that, you know, as far as we can do, Breathworks has taken every step to make this a trauma sensitive little program or freestanding session, but that we can never guarantee that nobody's going to get upset, you know. And at the end of the day, we're going to make sure, I think this is the key thing, is that people take responsibility for their own well-being, and that we are inviting and offering tools. You know, we're not doing therapy with this any more than we are with an 8-week course. This is not therapy, and we're not claiming that status at all. And that we're regularly reminding people to take care of themselves in all the ways that we've discussed. Yeah.
Okay. And what we've done for ourselves, obviously, because I know my own stuff. I've got my own stuff in the background, so that's why I'm aware of it, I suppose.
Absolutely.
You're going to go there, and actually that's part of it, but it's how it's done and in your zones of tolerance and everything else, isn't it? Otherwise it could be overwhelming. But so yes, it's just a bit nervous sometimes when I know some people's history of, you know, going there maybe. But the other thing I was going to mention was some of these, it's like remembering these for ourselves, that actually part of what is modeling, if you can be accepting of your imperfections and honest about some of your own stuff, or when it doesn't go right, or the technology doesn't work and all that, and that kindness and compassion to oneself. I think that's actually, because I know I've seen that with others, with people, and when they've been honest and they've had problems and then they've been honest and dealt with it in a kind way to themselves, it's like, oh, you know, it's that you learn almost more that they've modeled something, they've shown you by doing it to themselves, and you can sort of learn so much from that. I found that from other people. So
and I think also, if you're working with a group or a community where you know that there's likely to be that higher level of trauma, then really take it very, very gently. Look at the content of those mini modules, choose the stuff that feels safest. You know, I mean, for most people, they could probably, you know, hear about the thought train and find that an interesting and useful thing, and be encouraged to trace around their hand while noticing their breath flowing. You know, there are some really very basic things here, which we know, as we've been discussing through this day, that they're impactful. They're not nothing, these little safer approaches.
I suppose that's what she's saying. Use the very trauma sensitive one, you know, because some are a lot more, aren't they? Rather than going straight into the breath, close your eyes and all that, which may be not a good idea. Go to the ones that are on that safer edge.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Ginny. Bye.
Richard.
Thanks, Ginny. I think these modules look amazing. I'm really quite excited to try them out as they are and see how they work. The question I've got, I suppose, is around participant feedback. In terms of, on two levels. One, in terms of facilitators using this to develop their skills in terms of working with participants around some of the concepts around mindfulness. And I think some sort of feedback, participant feedback, could be really, really beneficial in terms of developing that learning cycle of the facilitators, but also on a Breathworks level as well. We've just developed these 6 modules, and you know, what level of feedback does Breathworks want in terms of how these are landing with participants, and whether they're working, and whether there's a sort of feedback form that's been designed to go with this, or whether you'd recommend that facilitators design their own to further their own learning and to get feedback.
Yeah, it's a really good question. At the moment, we haven't set up a sort of Breathworks wide feedback process for this. We've been collecting anecdotal feedback as part of our whole piloting process with these, and you know, that's given us some very, very positive, very helpful feedback. I think for you going out as an individual facilitator, I would say sort out your own form probably. And my experience over many years with feedback forms is simpler the better. You know, it's kind of name and the date of whatever it was you did, and then what worked well, or what did you appreciate or something in this session? And then, was there anything that you found more challenging or that you'd like to see more of? And that's often enough, and then a bit for anything else you'd like to add. That often gives you enough information to have some really useful insights. Yeah. And beyond that, we may decide to develop something further. But I think it's such early days at this point that we're just kind of wanting to get it rolled out. But good question. Yeah. Anne.
Yeah, I just want to say I feel the same as Richard. I see this as having taught the 8-week programme for a while, and also teaching for an organisation online, we've kind of had to try and work out how to reduce it to fit in with the needs of the organisation. I see this as a really lovely opportunity to offer mindfulness to all sorts of different groups. One size really doesn't fit all, and a wonderful way of spreading the benefits and the word of mindfulness more widely. So I'm with Richard. I'm quite excited about it. I'm now trying to deal with being too excited.
Well, it's a terrible problem to have. Thanks, Anne. So I just want to throw a few words in here just to get us all just bearing these in mind. The things that came into my mind when I was looking at these ethical principles was treating people with respect. That's kind of been implicit and explicit in a lot of what we've shared today. Inclusivity, inclusive practice. Again, it's it's certainly core to the breathworks approach, but what might that look like in any context that you're working in? Confidentiality, even in a short session like this, confidentiality is important, and if you are gathering information about people in advance, some sort of little booking form or anything like that, you need to make sure that you're storing that information in a way that's confidential, and that you're shredding it in due course or deleting it from your digital records or whatever once the course or the sessions are finished. So just bearing in mind those sort of important issues. Ensuring we're well prepared for our sessions. That's an ethical stance, isn't it? Doing our own practice, so that again we're coming from that place of authenticity, and safety, that our practice is still something that's a current, ongoing part of our lives. Ensuring people's comfort, their safety, their well-being, in whatever ways feel appropriate in the context that you're working. Working within the boundaries of our own competence as facilitators. And some of us will have other hats that we wear. Fine, that increases or broadens your competence, but nevertheless being aware of what the boundaries of your competence are, again, in any given specific context. Signposting people if there are areas that actually they might need further support with that we can't, or where it's not appropriate for us to take that further. So just having those sort of aspects in your mind, so that even with a light touch, short little session like this, you've got those things that people have got as safeguards and ways that you're maintaining the whole sort of ethical principles of you as an individual, but also of yourself as part of the Breathworks family and network. So yeah, those were the things that came to my mind. Is there anything that we haven't mentioned that would feel good to name at this point, or questions that are coming up? Boundaries, ethics, conduct, anything else? Okay, well, let's just, in that case, just throw it open to our sort of broader final Q&A. Anything we haven't touched on that's on your mind that you want to ask about, or just reflect back? Now's your opportunity. Liz.
Hi, I think so. It's been really good, actually. I was quite nervous about it, so I'm glad I've managed, and my computer and me have managed to make it through the day. So that's great. It was really a question about, because I've done the introductory TTI, and I've not done the other. So, and I didn't know if you do this in the facilitator and you're doing that, but then you might consider at some point. It's not going to be working at the moment for me to do the advanced one. If I wanted to do other stuff, I decided that. Is there a time limit again? Because I don't know, because there used to be sort of some idea of a time limit from doing the introductory to the other one, that otherwise you sort of lost the thing of it. But if you're doing this, is it then different, or do you still have to have done it within a certain period from when I did the introductory one?
Yeah, so the recommendation we make in terms of our training program is that if you're going on to do the full teacher training, preferably don't leave more than 12 months between significant training elements. So between doing this and doing your mindful movement or your TTA or whatever it was that you did next, or supporting a course, that also comes in stage 2. But we'll kind of expand that to 2 years if, you know, people's lives get busy, don't they? People get pregnant or have a significant illness or are made redundant or whatever, and actually you need longer before you can get back to things. So up to 2 years in those sort of unusual circumstances, but we would generally say don't leave more than 12 months, because that, you know, just to keep the impetus going and the freshness of the learning. But, you know, actually that still gives you a lot of leeway, doesn't it? Because that means it could be that you just, from here, if you decided you did want to do the full teacher training, you could do mindful movement within 12 months. And then after that, you could do your TTA within another 12 months from there, and then do your practice course. So it's kind of, you know, we do have some people who take 4 or 5 years to complete the training.
Yeah, I just wondered, because if you did do this and was practicing on this, if you liked, so you are doing something, but then, yeah, you've still got to keep an eye on that if you decide, in case you do want to do that kind of thing as it goes along. Okay, right, thank you.
Anybody else got any other questions, comments, or whatever? Helen.
Didn't expect that so quick. Yeah, it's just to echo something that we fed back to one another in our group this morning, Aidan and Janine and I. And we just each felt this was a wonderful stepping stone between TTI and going on to TTA. It just makes TTA seem that little bit closer and more accessible, because we've had that first time at teaching it, and you know, that whole thing. So just to thank you and Vijamala for doing it. Yeah, it's been wonderful. And now I'm less nervous about what's ahead, and I'm really excited, like the other lady said before. So thank you.
I'm delighted to hear that. That was so much our hope and our aim with developing this in this way. So I'm really glad that's how it's landing for you. Yeah. Katie.
So it's just between the idea of being a teacher and being a facilitator, obviously there's certain criteria, as you mentioned, to reaccredit as a teacher.
Yeah.
So are there any criteria to reaccredit as a facilitator? Is there a fee for that? And do we have to be insured if we're facilitators like we do as we are teachers?
We're not specifically requesting that people accredit as facilitators at this point, so there isn't a fee. We very deliberately have made it something, and again, to an extent, we've looked across at what other people are doing in the mindfulness field to see, you know, what's comparable, where does this stand in relation to other things, that other trainings or whatever. So we're not currently suggesting that there's a sort of accreditation and reaccreditation process. Part of the reason for including this little section about good practice and so on in this training is to say, I mean, with our teachers, it works a lot on trust anyway. We don't go hounding people and say, oh, have you done your CPD? I mean, if people want to be reaccredited, we have a little survey we send them to say, have you done X, Y, and Z? So we are asking, but we also take it on trust. We don't then go and check out all the retreats they mention or whatever. So with this, we will take it on trust that, you know, our strong encouragement to you to do some professional development, you know, buddy up with people and do at least some peer supervision from time to time. This is good practice. This is what we would really recommend that you do. But there aren't specific official hoops that you have to jump through around that. Similarly, there's not the same requirement about insurance. Now, that's largely because so far when people are doing these little freestanding sessions, it's almost always in a setting where somebody else's insurance covers it. Because if it's in a workplace and you're doing that for either your employer or somebody else's, it's going to be their insurance that covers it. Ditto, almost always in a community setting. If you're doing that with a community group, going along to their hall or their whatever monthly meeting or something, family and friends, ditto. The only time when really you should have your own separate insurance that I can think of is if you were going to be advertising these little sessions to the general public, you know, if you whether online or in person, and then really it would be good practice to get that sort of public liability insurance just in case. Yeah, and I would say that the same. I mean, it's interesting because we haven't yet had that question come up. Our holistic insurance, who recognise our teacher training, will provide that insurance cover. If there is anyone who's done our facilitator training who wants that cover from them, I imagine they'd come to us and say, "Is this kosher? Is this something you have actually provided and agreed?" In which case we would confirm it was. But yeah, so that's something that might come up, I imagine, as things unfold.
Will you be offering it? Will Breathworks be offering it as one of their sort of, you know, alongside Mindfulness for Health and Mindfulness for Stress? Will it become another sort of product
that we offer centrally?
Yeah.
I doubt that it's something, I mean, there's certainly no plans at all at the minute for us to be sort of advertising these freestanding mini modules and selling them to the public as a product. The times when it will be something that Breathworks offers centrally is much more in sort of bespoke settings where, you know, a health organization or somebody else approaches us and says, we'd like to have this little program, this is part of what you say you offer. So in that setting, but then that's, you know, that's not going to be in competition with any of you guys doing it under your own auspices. But that's the only real setting where we would be doing it centrally. I think we're much more interested in this is part of what we can offer as a training, then you can go out in the world and offer the product itself. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Taking a breath or two. We've been here, we've done very, very well. We've been here for 6 hours now, on and off. So yeah, congratulations to us for hanging on in there and having most of our brain cells still working. Well, some at least in my case. Anything else that it would be helpful? Any other questions or comments bubbling before we draw things to a conclusion for today? And it's not the end of your opportunities. Do you know what I mean? If something occurs to you and you think, oh, I wish I'd said that or asked that, just drop us a line, training@breathworks.co.uk, and we will answer you that way. Or also you can stick a question in the teachers and facilitators group in the COP. Okay, looks like we might be good. Yeah. Okay. Well, in that case, I suggest that we let ourselves off a little early because I don't think there's anything that we haven't covered out of all of these. Yes, all of the things I had noted down. So a big thank you. I've really appreciated not just you showing up, but you fully, wholeheartedly showing up and being so interested in it and taking part. And that's, you know, it's a great learning opportunity for us too. And all of your feedback has been really, really valuable. So thank you. I wish you well going forward. You should just get a certificate saying that you are now a Breathworks Mindfulness Facilitator for having completed this CPD day. So that will come straight from the office. But yeah, I wish you well going forward and let us know how you get on. You know, we want to collect stories and you know, feedback about how this does land for you in your different contexts. We're all learning together. So thanks a million. I'm going to just ask Julia, wherever she is, to just stay for 2 minutes at the end. But other than that, oh, there's Julia. There you are. Yeah. Was there anyone else who was? I thought I saw a hand just appear momentarily. Was there suddenly a last question? No. Okay. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much, Mark, for doing our tech support so beautifully. We can stop the recording now. and go well, everyone. And I will. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ginny.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you,
Thank
Ginny.
you.
Thanks, Ginny.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Bye, thanks.